Three, two. Hello, my Richies, and welcome back to another episode of the Make Life Rich Movement podcast. My name is Sarah. I'm your host, and in today's episode, we are talking about ways in which you can trust yourself through big changes. If you've ever been through a big change in your life, there are certainly moments of doubt that can go on the spectrum of subtle annoyance to absolute life disrupting fear, resistance, chaos. And being able to trust yourself throughout these periods, especially when you've made a decision based in not only intent, but in your actual reality of what's happening. And man, we're going to talk about a couple of different facets of moving yourself through and trusting yourself through big changes. And certainly I'm going to give you some instances that I had to trust myself through some big changes. And now looking back, I'm quite shocked that I did trust myself, and subsequently even more shocked that my husband trusted me enough as well. And, we grew through a lot of that and learned that we made our big leap a little too early, but later on down the line, it did turn into a blessing of sorts. So it's just such a journey. It's an ebb and flow. There is no linear path at all through your life, and making big changes can be a really great tool to utilize for yourself in order to make changes for the good. Now, if you feel like your path is absolutely uncertain, the compass is spinning in all directions, and you're just feeling really lost, but you know that big changes are on the horizon, I want to give you the invitation to recognize this divine disruption as somewhat of a sacred invitation for you to take yourself from the place you are to the place that is much closer to where you'd like to be. And ultimately, what can feel like chaos or unwanted change is often God's way of giving you, opportunities and moving you towards what is going to take you towards your highest good, even when you can't see the full picture yet. And I'm sure you've been there, and there's been moments where you're just trying to distinguish between fear-based resistance and then trying to implement a little bit of wisdom and discernment. Is this something that I'm making a decision from my experience and my understanding and my learnings, or am I making decisions based off of fear? And leaning into and learning to recognize when your hesitation about big change comes from old wounds and limiting beliefs versus when it's just genuine spiritual discernment that's guiding you to wait or to choose differently. And I think fear is something that usually constricts us, and based in scarcity, we can find ourselves, just saying, I don't know what to do, rather than having the discernment to feel grounded and supported through the decision of not yet, or I'm going to wait. I also had to give myself the ability to see endings as divine transitions, changes, new chapters, new books entirely, if you feel called to start a brand new book. But every major life change involves a death of some kind. And, you may be experiencing a death of who you used to be, or old identities, or familiar circumstances, or old friendships that are no longer supporting you and are, in fact, inhibiting you and hurting you. And rather than rushing through the grief of these scenarios ending or pretending the loss doesn't hurt you, it's best to honor these endings as sacred passages that are going to allow you to make space for new life to emerge, new opportunities, new friendships, new relationships, new versions of yourself that are better aligned with your beliefs, your authenticity, what you want in life, and ultimately what God knows is ahead for you and what is best for you. I also, as a type A Taurus individual and eldest daughter, all the tropes of like, I need control and I need it now, I had to trust the timing of divine time unfolding. Man, sometimes change happens faster than we can feel ready for. And sometimes we're ready before these circumstances align. And learning to trust that divine timing is often different from our preferred timelines is going to help you to surrender control while staying actively engaged in your own growth process. Recently, I found myself understanding and getting the aha moment of wanting to help others further along on their journey, aka hurry up here and let's get to the lesson because you're lagging and it's taking forever. And I had an aha moment, a light bulb pop up of just sheer intuition of, this is God's journey for them. Who are you to interject and tell God what their journey should be by inserting yourself and trying to push it forward? You can be a beacon of good and a person that is used as a tool by divine intervention to help someone. And you will know when those moments are there because your heart will be leading and not your ego wanting to help someone further along. Also, think about it for your own journey. I wish that I could have applied this discernment to my own path and my own self. It certainly would have saved me a lot of headache and would have given me the ability to just simply surrender and see what's up next. The second big key to just knowing how to trust yourself through big changes, and what was big for me and led me down a whole rabbit path that I'm sure you've heard if you've listened to a few episodes on this show, was that I needed to heal the inner child that feared abandonment, uncertainty, and ultimately enjoyed chaos because that kept from any kind of decisions needing to be made. Many of our struggles with trusting ourselves through change stem from our childhood experiences. It sucks to hear, right? I'm 40. It's annoying that 5-year-old Sarah, 7-year-old Sarah, 12-year-old Sarah could be inhibiting 40-year-old Sarah. And that was something I just had to get to. Also, I didn't enjoy knowing that those ages and the younger parts of me had unhealed bits of them that were lingering because that's all they are, those past versions, until I healed them. Now, loss of safety, love, or security could spark you to feel triggered to really abandon and not be able to look at or trust yourself through periods of big change. But when you are able to identify your change related inner child wounds, whether that's noticing what stories your inner child tells you about change, meaning like, oh, change means people have to leave, or I'm not strong enough to handle this, or if I make the wrong choice, I'll be rejected. And these beliefs formed in childhood often drive our adult resistance to necessary growth and transformation. That's why inner child healing is so key. Shadow work is so key. And I'm now in a place where I'm starting to recognize that my inner child healing has led me ultimately to God, a person I previously did not have in my life. And inner child healing ultimately leads me to the conversation of reparenting. I have a ton of episodes on this. I'll click them in the link for the show notes. Reparenting yourself through these transitions of big change will lead you to ultimately have that trust within yourself because you've built the confidence through experience, through these interactions and these lessons you've allowed yourself to grow through and go through rather than avoid and resist. And during big changes, consciously offer your inner child the reassurance they need. We're going to figure this out together. You are loved no matter what happens. I am here. You're not alone. I will never abandon you no matter what's going on. This internal dialogue is creating safety for you while you're in the space of needing to take necessary risks. There's also the beauty, which I've discussed like so much. I absolutely love this triad of topics and how they're all forming for me, but creating the neural pathways around change is so integral. And I really believe that God utilizes our habits in life as a way to be able to give us all that we need within inside of ourselves to forge the path forward with his word and his guidance in ways that are going to allow us to rewrite all the negative habits, all those generational curses we've inherited throughout the years. And who knows where they came from, right? All I do know is that they're inhibiting us from our ultimate goal, which is ascending into peace, happiness, love, joy, and being able to spread that as far and as wide as you can make as impact in your world. Now, being able to create pathways neurally within your brain around change is just you being able to associate change with adventure, growth, prosperity, divine love, rather than danger, loss, scarcity, chaos. And you can literally rewire your brain's response to uncertainty by celebrating small changes, acknowledging the resistance in the past transitions, and kind of speaking to yourself with the tenderness you needed as a child during those immense times of upheaval that literally imprinted you into feeling this way now as an adult. The third thing I needed to get a grasp on was literally distinguishing between my inner wisdom and my fear voices. Learning to trust myself required literally developing the spiritual discernment for me to recognize which internal voices are speaking from divine wisdom, something I've inherited, my intuition, my inner knowing, my godly connection, versus the voices inside your head that are speaking from old wounds, societal conditioning, and overall trauma inflicted by your caretakers in positions of authority in your youth. Man, let's take a second here. I want to slow it down for a bit because this is a really important part of this conversation. You need to understand the body of wisdom that is your authentic self. Your true self communicates through your body differently than fear does. Divine guidance from God often feels expansive in your chest, warm, welcoming, joyous, peaceful. You may shed a tear of happiness. Deep, soothing grounding in your belly. All the anxiety leaves your body. Or like a gentle knowing that persists even when your mind is racing. Fear, on the other hand, typically creates tension in the throat, the head, the stomach, the chest, the jaw, constriction, frantic energy in your body that demands immediate action, or there's going to be a consequence of avoidance. I also needed to quiet the committee of other people's voices in my head. I had to banish those from my head that had imprinted themselves when I found them popping up during moments of just needing to make and trust myself. Sorry, guys. Trust myself through change. I needed to notice when my internal dialogue was actually echoing parents, teachers, people in authority that I had had to deal with in my life, or society's expectations, rather than my own inner knowing given to me from the intuition that connects to God. I had to practice asking, whose voice is this? When I heard myself speaking negatively, limitingly about myself, about my opportunities, about my gifts, my skills, my heart. And when I heard internal criticism or the shoulds about what I should have done throughout my life for that day, I had to recognize that someone else put that voice there. Even if they were discussing it about themselves, I heard it and it made an imprint in my neural pathways that made me think that's how I'm supposed to speak about myself. Another big thing for me when trying to rebuild the neural pathways was just absolutely understanding that the divine knowing and the fear voice in their differences, accessing God's counsel through my contemplative practices, whether that's my guided visualization, moments, prayer, quiet walks on the beach with my dog, who is currently growling because it's summertime and we live at the beach and there are a ton of people walking by. So I apologize. It's okay, baby. Lay down. It's okay. But being able to develop regular practices like journaling, prayer, meditation, walking in nature, where you can hear beyond the noise of anxiety that isn't yours or external pressures, in this quieter space, you're going to have the ability to allow divine wisdom to emerge as a gentle knowing that takes you over, soothes away all of the anxiety, and leaves you feeling peace and knowing what to do and what the next right step is. The fourth thing I had to give myself when trying to trust myself through big changes was building faith muscles through small acts of trust in myself. Trusting myself through major life changes required developing a spiritual strength through practices of trust in smaller everyday decisions first. Starting with low stakes trust exercises was key for me. And it may feel like, is this really necessary to do all of this? Yes, it is, especially if you find yourself in analysis paralysis or you haven't done any inner child healing yet. There's been no reparenting work. You don't currently have a relationship with God and you're seeking one. Yes, this is important. This is integral. So, what are some small, low stakes trust exercises you can do with yourself? First, you start to begin building trust muscles with yourself by following your intuition in small matters. Which route to take home? Should I make a right or a left? What am I going to eat tonight? When to call a friend? Should I go get that coffee or not? How to spend your free time. You're going to hear inner words, and sometimes you choose against them. And in choosing against them, you are choosing against that inner knowing that knows that you can and should make harder decisions sometimes in order to avoid big, gigantic decisions later on in life becoming crippling because you couldn't handle obeying and honoring the intuition within that told you, we don't need another coffee. Don't go to that Starbucks drive-thru. We don't need it. But you went and did it anyway. So these may seem insignificant. And trust me, I felt the same way, you guys. But it is going to help you over time not only rewire your neural pathways to these better habits that are more in alignment with your intuition, your knowing, and what you want for yourself, but ultimately it's helping you to learn and decipher the difference between impulsive desires and authentic inner guidance based in intuition and a connection with God. I started also documenting evidence of this divine guidance, this interaction. I kept a journal in my phone and on my desk of times when following my inner knowing led to positive outcomes, unexpected opportunities, or I avoided a major headache or a major problem. This creates a tangible manner within which you're going to be able to gauge, get your ROI and all this time you're spending on how your life is improving. And namely, and most importantly, how trust in yourself is being laid down action by action, day by day, week by week, month by month. The compounding effects of this are monumental and will not only change your life in allowing you to build trust in yourself through big changes, but it will ultimately ripple out to help others to find trust in themselves and even deeper fortify their trust in you. Now, I had to absolutely practice surrendering in outcomes, which we talked about before, right? Not gripping onto control. And I had to learn to take inspired action while I was holding on to results loosely. I could set a goal, right? We should always set a goal. We should always have our eyes on the prize, know where we're headed, have some loose directions to get there. But we have to be ready and willing and able to pivot. You have to be coachable throughout this process, even with yourself. Okay. It might sound like, I'll apply for this job that excites me and trust that if it's meant to be, it'll work out beautifully. And if not, something better is on its way. This balance of engagement and surrendering is going to build spiritual maturity while also allowing you to loosen the grips on something you ultimately have zero control over. And it's only giving you further anxiety and having it be one more thing you think you need to be in control of and keep stock of and keep it up here when you don't need to. And in fact, it is quite literally limiting your life and growth in ways you're not even aware of yet. Finally, I needed to have a community around me to support me during these big changes. We all do. You may find yourself in a space in life where you don't feel like you have friends to support you, and that's okay. But while trusting yourself is ultimately an individual journey, having the right community, especially one that's based in faith or spirituality, can provide you the encouragement and perspective needed to stay connected to your mission and your authentic path during uncertain times, periods of chaos, periods of upset, periods of just not knowing what's next. Now, choose companions that see your highest potential. You want to be around those that are speaking life into you because they believe in your capacity for growth and change, rather than those that want to keep you small or familiar because they themselves are not in a space or a position to be able to grow and they want to keep you small with them. You also want to make sure that there are friends that can hold space for your uncertainty without trying to fix you or direct you, while also celebrating your courage to follow that inner knowing that's connected to that divine guidance of God. You also want to find mentors who have navigated similar situations. It's going to be difficult to seek out people who've successfully trusted themselves through big changes that resonate with your current situation. And you want to have discernment in finding these mentors and seeking out these people. This isn't about copying their path, but rather having guidance and learning from someone who's been through a faith journey and see evidence that there is, something to trusting the divine guidance within yourself through uncertainty, and that there is possibility and a worthwhileness to it all that is absolutely worth your time and efforts. And you're going to connect so deeply with these people because they not only see where you came from, but they know where you're headed. And then when you get there, they're able to literally celebrate with you all of those moments that have made you the new version of who you are today. I also had to be honest with myself about my need for support. This was huge. During major transitions, I found myself being so tight lipped. And until I met my husband almost 8 years ago in August, there was no one in my corner that I felt like I could truly trust with these things, that would look me in the face, love me, believe in me, support me unconditionally, and give me the guidance that they thought was best for me without trying to infringe too much on my decision making process. And with these major transitions, you need people who are going to pray for you. They're going to love you through this. They're going to look you in the face and say, you are okay and everything is going to be okay. And this is just one step on the beautiful, hopeful, lifelong journey that you have ahead of you of getting better and better and trusting yourself more and more every day through not only big transitions in life, but through the beautiful, tiny moments of life as well that are holding and binding every bit of our life together through the book of our own journey. I am so thankful for you turning in, my Richies. I'm sorry this was a shorter one. I wanted to really just encourage you to identify just one area within your life where you think there's a potential change that you could start to work towards. And I want you to commit to one small step this week that is going to honor you building trust with yourself. Even if you can't see the full path ahead, I just want you to know and recognize and lean into the wisdom and the intuition that exists within you. You have everything you need, especially if you have God by your side, to be able to achieve these things. And I cannot wait to hear how you grew one step ahead this week, my Richies. As always, it is an absolute pleasure to have your time and attention. Please share this with someone you think might need this help or encouragement. I will see you in our next episode. And as always, make life rich.